Okay, so this is now the last section of the Song of Songs. Before I get into the text with you today, I want to address one issue that one of you was struggling with in the reading assignment, and it's the issue of infidelity, right? So the person who wrote, right, was saying basically, why is she choosing to stay with this guy, right? And she made an interesting comment by saying that ultimately the text seems to be more patriarchal than we thought, right? Since the woman ends up staying with this man, like it's as though she has this inner pressure, right, to stay with this man. So in a way, I was saying the text is a subversion of patriarchy, right? The woman has a strong role, but in a way, this person, I forgot your name, I'm sorry, mentioned that, well, this is, in a way, the woman is very conventional by staying with this cheating guy, right? So I want to address this briefly a little bit. Would you like to tell me who you were? Or if you don't, it's okay, but who was it that wrote these, who was complaining about this issue of infidelity? If you don't want to tell me, it's fine. I'll just talk to you abstractly. Okay, very good. I'm sure other people have wondered this anyways. So let me talk a little bit about the difference between the way she's doing it and the way that a woman under the patriarchal yoke would be doing it, right? In patriarchy, the woman doesn't have a choice, right? This woman, however, she's not bound by anything. She's not bound by culture. She's not bound by religion. She's in a way choosing to be there. So that's the first distinction, right? Between her version of faithfulness and a woman who is under in the context of patriarchy. Now, the second thing has to do with so first of all, right, she's doing it out of her free will, right? She's choosing to be there. Now the person who wrote the paper mentioned, well, why is she losing her self-respect, right? So I would ask back, I would say, well, is it really losing your self-respect if you're choosing to be there, right? If you're not choosing, then yes, you're a victim, you're passive, right? You're undergoing the thing, right? But if you're choosing to stay and address it and deal in the way that she's doing, right? She's choosing to stay and she's addressing it. She's not just enduring it. She's really doing, she's doing certain things that are in a way shifting the situation. I would ask, is she really losing her self-respect, right? Finally, let's not forget the wisdom in her choice, right? She stays and she, in a way, navigates successfully the situation. So in a way, her staying teaches us how we might stay in a situation like this, right? Let's remember that these books were not written for the average believer who follows the rules, right? So you're not going to be having people in wisdom literature who are good people. You have broken people, you have problematic people, you have people with issues, right? The whole corpus of wisdom literature is full of people who have issues, right? So the text is not going to feature the perfect marriage. It's going to feature a deeply imperfect relationship and how to navigate that, right? So unlike, the other biblical texts where it's like, oh, you sin, therefore we're done, right? Here we are in a context of you sinned, but we're not done. And how do I now deal with this, right? How do I navigate this situation? So in a way, right, the text is very realistic that these issues will come up, and the text is not just, the woman is not just passive. In the text, she is in a way showing the way to how we might navigate the situation and even succeed if we were in that position. Does that answer your question? Whoever you were, you can put it in the chat if you don't want to be in front of the class. But am I making sense? I put you all on gallery view so I can see your faces. Do you see what you can put your hand in the screen if you're seeing what I'm saying. Does anyone want to add to this, right? This issue, do you understand the difference, right? Between the victimized woman who is forced to stay and the woman who chooses and who in a way manages to navigate successfully this issue. For her, it's not a deal breaker, right? Because she is realistic about the brokenness of the person she's with. Any other comments before we go into or reactions or allergies to what I just said? right? The more questions you ask, the deeper I can go, right? So any of you uncomfortable with anything I just said, speak up so we can, go deeper. All good? Okay. All right, so let's get into the text. Today, I'm gonna, like I told you, I'm gonna focus on the chapter, was it 5? I think so. So we put it on the chat. So first of all, I'm gonna talk about the center of the book. And then second of all, I'm gonna talk about grace in the Song of Songs. Okay, so, all right, so let's go straight to the center of the book. So in the chapter I asked you to read, which was, I believe, chapter 5. So let's turn there right now because we're going to be there for a bit. Actually, it was chapter 4. Sorry. Where was it? Chapter 5. Chapter 5, the beginning of chapter 5. Okay, so I asked you to read chapter 5 until whatever, the whole chapter, right? And so I want to talk a little bit about this chapter before we actually go into the text. So this chapter actually, incidentally, is in the middle of the book. So this is significant, right? Because the middle of the book is a strategic place when you're dealing with Near Eastern literature. The middle of the book is actually the most important part of the book. This is where everything is being said, right? It's very different from Western literature, where usually when we want to make a point, we put it either at the beginning or in the end, right? When you want to know what the author's point is, you go to the conclusion or you go to the introduction, and now you know what they're trying to say. Near Eastern literature is different. They kind of go like this, right? They bring you, they lure you into the center, and in the center of the book is really the key to the whole book. It's where the author is really going to say what they have to say, right? So we go to the center and we're excited, right? We're thinking, this chapter probably going to reveal to me, right, the secret potion, right, the secret love potion, or maybe there is going to be a wedding there, or maybe, it's the first kiss or whatever, right? And instead, what do we see? What did you see in chapter 5? What do you see that's actually an anticlimax? What's going on in chapter 5?
They're being disconnected.
Okay, exactly, right? Instead of a beautiful encounter of love, like the climax, you have this anticlimactic moment of they kind of miss each other, right? He comes to her door, and all of a sudden, right, totally out of character, she's like, oh, I don't know if I want to come to the door. And she's being difficult. And then finally she gets to the door and he's already gone, right? So very good, right? Prashad, he was knocking, she didn't answer, right? There's a big misunderstanding. They're not connecting. And so, imagine the disappointment of the reader, right? Who was expecting to see something amazing here in the middle. And instead we see this lame story about them missing each other and, and not connecting, and we don't have a climax, and it's just deeply disappointing. Right, so what we're going to try and do nevertheless is try to see what is the story hiding, right? Is there wisdom to be learned from this particular misunderstanding, right? And so that's what I want to invite you to do. So we want to think together, what can we learn from this total missed communication, misunderstanding? What is it that we can learn from this passage? What does this passage tell us about love? Okay, anybody want to try? Let's write a list. What lessons can you gather from this passage as to how to love? See if you can get a few ideas. So you can respond in the chat, or you can raise your virtual hand. Remember, the way to do that is you go to participants at the bottom menu, and then you go to your name, and you will see next to your name, you have the option to raise your hand. Okay? All right, I'm waiting. Well, all right. Prashad says, although you love the person, it doesn't mean you want to spend every waking moment with them. Okay, very good. This is one way to see this text, which is very accurate. This text can teach us about boundaries, right? In other words, so let me say this, right? In other words, it's okay at times to say no, right? And this is something that lovers, especially at the beginning of a relationship, have trouble with, right? We always want to please and we want to say yes, and we want to just always, and we kind of merge into the other person, right? And we become this kind of, we're losing ourselves in the other. This is a common feature, to lose yourself in the other. It's as though the woman at that moment is awakening to herself and to her boundaries, right? In other words, the text, so very good, Prashad, right? The text seems to be, so that's, make sure you write this down, right? One of the lessons of this text is to teach us it's okay sometimes to create boundaries, separation, to say no, right? This is part of being yourself and therefore remaining attractive, right? One of the reasons we lose our attractiveness in a relationship is often because we have lost ourselves, right? In a way, the woman at that moment reclaims her voice, her individuality, her space, right? So just to respond to the person again with the notion of infidelity, right? To live with someone who is unfaithful, it doesn't mean you say nothing, right? I want to add something there, right, to what I said before. It doesn't mean you do nothing. It means that you can stay while fighting, right? Let me emphasize this because this is so important, because we usually have only two paths, right, in our minds when it comes to problematic relationships, especially a deep problem like infidelity, right? First path is like, I'm gone, the hell with you, right? And we dump the person. Second path, victim, I undergo everything, I say nothing, right? Our mothers, our grandmothers, right? The Song of Songs is giving us a middle ground, I think, where the woman stays, but she also speaks up, right? She also knows how to say no. She also knows how to create boundaries. She also knows she speaks a lot, right? She's saying a lot of things. She's expressive, right? So I think the Song of Songs is teaching us, is pointing us, right? Especially when you're in a difficult relationship, is pointing us to the possibility of staying while fighting. Remember, Song of Songs is a series of tensions, right? We saw how you have to give and not give. You have to hold and let go. Remember the last two times we studied, right? When we studied seduction, we said it's giving, but a little bit at a time. So give, not give. We saw also the infidelity and commitment, right? You release the person, but you trust. So the Song of Songs is the ability to dwell in a tension. And so the biggest tension is the tension of staying while fighting, right? And I think this is the path that the Song of Songs is opening up, saying this is possible and this is also can be very effective, right? The idea that I am staying, but I'm also fighting for my respect, for my self-respect. I'm fighting for the relationship. I'm fighting for the quality of this relationship, but at the same time, I'm staying. This is something that's very hard to do. We usually pick either way, right? So very good, Prashad. Okay, other lessons. Let's see. We have, again, Prashad, she seemed to have something against him, although he did something and she wanted to punish him. Yes, that happens sometimes. Yes, in order to keep okay, so Hassan, in order to keep the love eternal, you have to practice distancing and reconnecting. Okay, very good. So second aspect, right? And we have here indication of the art of seduction, right? Perhaps, right? She's playing hard to get. She was very into this guy. She was always running after him. And now she's like, let me take a step back, right? Let me be a little desirable here. So maybe she's practicing the art of seduction. Absolutely, you can say that. Very good. So Flores says, be open about feelings. She questioned whether or not she wanted to open the door. Yes. So this is one feature of this woman, which is quite extraordinary. She's very open about her feelings and her desires. And yet she's able to do it without setting expectations. This is also one of her deepest qualities, right? She's able to express her desires without setting expectations and making ultimatums, right? And this is part of what makes her so attractive, right? So desirable, right? This is also very interesting. Excellent. Anything else that you can learn from this passage? Ruspler, go ahead, speak to us.
So I think something else that can be learned is that I think that like this chapter is kind of normalizing the ups and downs of relationships. I think that very often when people get into relationships initially, they think it's like going to be all like the honeymoon phase or like the beginning stage where like there's a lot of infatuation. But I think it's normalizing the experience of ups and downs in relationships. and like kind of figuring out the way to communicate about that in a normal and healthy way.
Excellent, right? This is a text which is about life. It's not going to be, right, airbrushing, like some of those apps on your phone, right? Airbrushing yourselves. This is not Facebook, right? This is real life. And the text, in a way, the text is never telling us. This is, again, I'm responding to the person who wrote in the reading assignment, which I thought was great what she wrote. This is the kind of reading assignment I want to read, right? Nice, challenging question, right? The text is not saying you should stay in a relationship. The text is not prescriptive, right? The text is not giving us rules. The text is saying, if you want to stay, here is a path, right? So this is the difference between wisdom literature and the rest of the Bible, which is saying, thou shalt stay, thou shalt, right? Here the text is like, do it, what the hell you want, right? But if you want to stay, here's how I did it, right? She's telling us, right? So very good, Wrestler. Okay, good. Anything else? Okay, so here's, I'll give you now my reading, right, of the text. What I found interesting in the text was the difference in timing between the man and the woman. This is what struck me in the text, right? In other words, their misunderstanding seems to be based on the fact that they don't have the same timing. In other words, the man is rushing to her, finally, by the way, this is the first time he makes a move, right? Up until now, he was pretty passive and she was the one running after him. It's the first time, finally he makes a move. So he's knocking and you sense the urgency, right? In fact, the word here in the Hebrew for knocking is pounding. So he's actually pounding. I don't know what the Me Too movement would say about that, but he's pounding on her door, right? And so she, on the other hand, there's no urgency. It's the opposite. She's really slow, almost lethargic. She's like, oh, I don't know, maybe, blah, blah, blah. Finally, she gets there. She's ready. And he's gone, right? So this is the first thing I noticed. Make sure you write this down. There seems to me to be a difference of timing here between the man and the woman. And this leads me into a reflection on how this is actually a general thing. There is a difference in timing between the man and the woman in general, which makes for many misunderstandings. So let's talk a little bit about that. So can you tell me, in the text, the man is pretty fast, the woman is pretty slow. What would you say the man, where is his urgency? What is he pounding on the door about? What does he want from her? And is she as urgent as him? Or let me rephrase the question. Oh, sorry. Yes, Hassan. Right time, wrong place, wrong time. Yes, right? Absolutely. So he's very urgent, right? He wants to see her. And she is very interesting. There's a verse in verse 2 where it says, I was asleep, but my heart was awake. And I think this is the key to the passage. So in other words, she's asleep physically, but her heart is awake, right? For the man is the absolute opposite. And we're going to see that in a second. So first thing we see with regards to the timing is that the man is physically ready, but the woman isn't, right? She's been ready, but not for that. In other words, throughout the text before, the woman is like, I want your love, I want your affection, I want your love. This is emotional, right? Here we have for the first time the man making a move on the physical level, right? He wants her physically or sexually, right? And he's ready. She, on the other hand, all of a sudden becomes Mrs. Ice Queen, right? She's slow, she's not ready. So it seems that she's a bit slower than him when it comes to the physical side of things. Now, when it comes to the emotional side of things, what would you say is the case? Is she faster, or is he the fast one when it comes to the emotional part of the relationship? Okay, very good, Leon. She's faster. What makes you say that, Leon? Speak to us. Okay, all of you are agreeing with you, Leon.
Oh yeah, because like I guess in terms of her being ready, but more towards being emotionally ready. Because before you were saying how the guy was more in terms more physical, right? But on the opposite side, in the beginning, you can tell like I guess she had a stream of emotions towards the guy rather than she had different intentions. Yes.
Right. So absolutely. So we're learning something very interesting, right? Now this is not a general rule, but in general, right? You could say, not for everybody, but in general, right? It seems that the man is, if we were to extrapolate, right, the man is faster physically and the woman is slower physically. However, the opposite is also true. The woman is fast emotionally, but the man is slower. And you can see that when she reaches finally for the door, he didn't have the emotional strength to stay. He's already gone, right? So we're learning something very interesting, which can clarify a number of misunderstandings, right? And if we understand this, we can also learn to adapt to each other more easily, right? If we know that the man is fast physically and the woman is slow physically, and yet it doesn't mean she doesn't love him, this helps clear up a number of misunderstandings. Let me give you an example. Suppose you're a guy and you've been dating a little bit in a few weeks, and now you feel like, I should make my move, right? So you make a move, like maybe it's like you kiss her or you touch her somewhere that you haven't touched her before. And she's like, oh, don't do that, right? She's like all startled and she's like basically pushing you away. What are the two things this could mean? Well, actually, there's only one thing at this point. If you've been dating a few weeks, this can mean only one thing. What does this mean? Okay, so Prashad said, she's not into you or she's not ready. But absolutely. It could either mean she's not into you, but you've been dating several weeks, so clearly she's interested. So therefore, it probably means she's not yet ready, right? But the problem is that most guys, they feel rejected at that moment, and they're like, they lose their courage, right? And they're like, oh, she doesn't love me, she's not into me, and they feel completely rejected, not knowing that she simply is operating on a different level. She's on a different rhythm, right? And so the fact that she rejects your move doesn't mean she doesn't love you, simply means she's slower, she needs more time, she needs more preparation, right? So this is crucial, right? And what we're learning in a way is that the way to connect when there's such a difference of temporality is the only possible way to connect is to develop the virtue of patience, right? To be able to align yourself with the other's temporality. Now, the opposite is also true, right? We women are very fast emotionally. So after a few weeks, we know they're the one. Actually, first encounter, we can know this, right? A woman, there are some women, they meet you right away, they know. Right? So we're ready very quickly emotionally. And the guy, on the other hand, what's going to be his problem? For us, at least. How's it going to be for the guy, based on this passage? Exactly. Doesn't match her energy. He's not going to be as eager, right? Now, woman is like, okay, it's time to commit. We need to move to the next level. And the guy's like, I don't know, babe. I don't know if I'm ready. So for us women, what does this mean? What do your girlfriends tell you at that moment about this guy who's like, I'm not ready to commit. Let's, what do your girlfriends tell you, ladies? He's like, okay, Flores, he's cheating, drop him, he's a player, right? Immediately we react like we would react as women and be like, well, no, this guy's immature, he's probably cheating, drop him, blah, 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 right? So what we don't realize, however, and often don't respect as women, is that just like we are slower on the physical side and we want to be respected, we want our rhythm to be respected. Likewise, the man is slower on the emotional side and we ought also to respect his rhythm. And this is something we rarely do, right? We expect the man to slow down, and this is a good thing, right? If the man wants to genuinely encounter a woman and not force himself on her, he has to, in a way, learn to wait for her, right? To open up. But likewise, we women need to learn to wait for the man to also grow, feel safe enough emotionally to commit, right? And this is something that we often don't do. We react exactly like what you guys wrote in the, right, in the chat, right? We blame the guy. We're like, he's a player, he's immature, blah, blah. So this is, the text in a way is inviting us to this, right? The text in a way is pointing out something fundamental. It's pointing out the difference of rhythms. And in a way, the text is inviting us, right? If you want to be connected eventually, you have to learn to align yourself with the rhythm of the other person. To have to learn to wait until they have reached your level. So just like we want the man to wait for us and not rush us physically or sexually, right? Just like the man, in a way, is an act of love for him to wait for us to be ready. Likewise, it's an act of love for us to wait for them to be ready emotionally, right? And this is something we rarely do. So what we're learning here is that ultimately the key, right, to succeeding and having an encounter, an intimate encounter, is patience, right? Patience, in a way, is the highest virtue of love. The ability to wait for the other is the most loving gift, right, you can give to your significant other, right? I'm willing to wait for you. And by the way, we talk a lot about, you know, the woman needing time physically, and we'll talk about that a little bit at the last session of class when we talk about foreplay and so forth, right? So we know that the woman needs to be prepared, right, for the sexual encounter, but we rarely talk about the way that we can prepare the man for commitment, right? What kind of emotional foreplay is needed that we should be doing as women so that the man can feel safe enough to emotionally connect with us? And this is rarely talked about, right? There are so many ways that we miss this, right? When we're critical, when we're complaining, when we're even just unhappy, right? This is creating an emotional atmosphere which is not safe for the man, right? Critical atmosphere, complaining atmosphere. If you're always crying about how horrible he is, right? This, in a way, is we almost have to learn to create a safe space for the man emotion. But this is never talked about. I haven't read this anywhere, right? This notion that the man also needs for us to wait and to create a safe space, just like we want him to do so for us sexually, right? Any questions on this? Am I making sense? Put your hands in the screen if I'm making sense. Okay, so right, what we're learning here is that both, in a way, have their own rhythm, and both need to learn to wait on the other, right? Wait for the other. And this is, in my view, one of the deepest lessons of this text, right? Which they're not doing, right? But which, if they had done it, the ending might have been very different, right? Imagine if they had been able to wait on each other's rhythms. Maybe they would have ended up, you know, the evening would have turned out completely different, right? We don't know. I'll just let you imagine how it might have turned out. Okay, so moving on now to the last point I want to make, which I've entitled Grace in the Song of Songs, right? When I wrote initially the outline for today. Okay, so this particular section I want to dedicate to all of us, to whoever in this class has no relationship skills. Okay, I'm not going to ask who you are, but because that's humiliating. But, you know, a lot of us, you know, we have good intentions, but we don't know how to do this. Actually, this is probably most of us. Most of us struggle, right? To be honest, the rare people who succeed in relationships naturally are people who had good parents. I mean, parents who were not good to them, but good to each other. And this is very rare. If you were lucky enough to grow up in a household where your parents were loving to each other, you will do it naturally, right? Most of us, however, we didn't grow up in households like that, right? So we don't know how the hell this works, right? So we will have a series of blunders and mistakes, and we'll go the wrong way, and we'll say the wrong thing and do the wrong thing at the wrong time, and you know. And so I want to dedicate this section of my lecture to these people who are full of good intentions. They want to find the love of their life, right? But each time they try, they mess things up somehow, right? So this part of the lecture is for you. This is about grace, right? And so I want to start by saying that you're not alone. If you're somebody who is consistently messing up all your relationships, somehow you find a way to destroy them, right? You are not alone, because the two lovers in the song are actually full of mistakes. They, both of them, make a number of fatal mistakes that should have messed up the relationship right in the second chapter already. Let's make a list. Let's start with the woman. What are some of the fatal mistakes she makes in the beginning that should have been a huge turnoff, and the guy should have been gone by now? Anybody can, let's make a list. Let's start with the woman. Yes, Medina, go ahead.
She comes off too strong.
Yes, it's terrible. If you're a guy, you're like, oh my God, who is this crazy person? She comes off so strong and she's all over him and she's obsessed and she's jealous and she's, right? So this already is a huge turnoff, right? What else does she do? That's really huge turnoff. The guy should have fled by now. So let me write the list. So the woman, right, comes on too strong. What else do we see about her? She's aggressive. What else do we see? There's more. How is she with the guy initially when she finds out he's in the lilies? What's her attitude? Remember, we studied this last time. When she says, my beloved is mine. What is she saying? Okay, very good, right, Leon? She's possessive, right? So the woman is also very possessive. She's too strong. She takes the initiative. She's really, in a way, not keeping to her own advice of being seductive, and she's not, right, doing the art of seduction. She's ruining it, right? Very good. She's too open. She's like just all her, like, it's all hanging out. It's like, all her emotions are like pouring out, right? So there's no restraint. There's none of this, right? She's really failing. What about the guy? What are some fatal mistakes he makes, including the obvious? Well, the guy's perfect. He's a hero. He's a knight in shining armor. You guys are taking too long. What's the guy's problem? Okay, Chavez, yes. He's fickle. He's here, he's not here, he's here, he's not here. We have people like that in our lives. One day he's here, the other day he disappears 2 weeks and then comes back, right? And then, yes, he's cheating. So Hassan, you might have missed last time, we established that he's maybe, we don't know for sure, but maybe cheating, yes. Very good, right? So again, the guy is, both of them, right, are really messed up. And yes, Hassan, we don't know for sure. We know nothing for sure in the Bible, right? So absolutely, but the basic thing we know, right, for sure, is that they're both very deeply flawed and imperfect lovers, right? They're not doing the right thing. So there's two problems with these guys, right? Not only they're not following the rules of society, the rules of their religion, the rules of their tradition, they're breaking that, right? But not only that, but they don't even have common sense. They don't even know, right, how to follow their own wisdom. So really, when you read this text, you can only imagine it's not going to end well, right? A relationship where both people are so immature and broken and they're breaking all the rules. I mean, they deserve to fail, right? And yet, and this is so powerful for me when I read this text, in spite of the fact that they break all the rules, in spite of the fact that they are reckless and clueless and make mistake upon mistake and fatal mistakes and even hurt each other, in spite of that, they end up succeeding in their love. And you can see that in the Song of Songs when you go towards the end, right? You have a very powerful statement on chapter 8, verse 6. Let's turn there right now. Chapter 8, verse 6. Is everybody there? Let me see your hands in the screen. Are you there? Okay, very good, right? This is towards the end, right? They've gone through all of these issues, the lilies and the possible infidelity, and she's, been, kind of calming down from being so obsessive. At the end, she's saying this, right? Bind me as a seal upon your heart, a sign upon your arm, for love is as fierce as death, is jealousy bitter as the grave, even its sparks are a raging fire. Great seas cannot extinguish love, right? So their love in a way has matured to a point where it is as strong as death, right? So we have a progression in the text. And we saw this even last time when we talked about infidelity and commitment, where the man in the end commits, right? You have a progression towards a love which succeeds. And so here's my question to you, right? How is it that even though they break all the rules, even though they're sinners, even though they make all the mistakes in the book, what is their secret? What is it that they do that in the end ensures their success? What is it? Can anybody tell me? There's two things that have to be practiced together in order to pull off a successful relationship, even though you're breaking all the rules. Medina, go ahead. Medina, speak to us.
Sorry, I was muted.
Go ahead.
It's the fact that they don't really give up. They're very like consistent on their feelings, and they don't just let that get in the way.
Okay, excellent. This is point one. Okay, so point one that they have, even though they are so bad at everything else, perseverance, right? Now we'll see that's not enough, but let's talk a little bit about that first of all, right? The lovers, what they have and what we can all have, right? Even if we are complete messes, right? If you feel like you're a complete mess, like you're a hot mess, right? And you're always messing things up and all your relationships end up in disasters, right? There's one thing you can do to change that. There's also a second one, we'll get there. But the first thing you can do, persevere. Just stay, whatever's going on, just stay. There's a hurricane, just stay, right? So the perseverance, nobody leaves, right? No matter what's going on, they're in it, right? They don't give up. They, in a way, they stick it out. They live through every season, right? So that's certainly the first point, but it's not enough. Why? Because we all know these marriages where they stayed and they're just so toxic together. It's unbearable to be in their presence, but here they are, they stuck it out, right? So we know many marriages where they stick it out and we don't want to be in their presence and we pity whoever lives with them, right? They have the most toxic relationship on earth, right? So it's not enough. There's a second thing that needs to happen for it to work, in addition to the perseverance. What is it? And we've been talking about it all along. Nobody sees it? Okay, Flores, patience, I would say that's with the stay. They stay, they're patient, they stay, they're enduring. Patience means to endure, right? They're enduring the thing, but it's not enough, right? Because it can be really toxic. You're enduring the toxic relationship, right? So what else is needed for the relationship, and what are they doing? What are they willing to do in order for the relationship to work? And let me ask you this question. Is the woman the same in the end as she is in the beginning? Is the man the same in the end as he is in the beginning? What do you see? Let's start with the woman. Is she the same woman in the end of the text as she is in the beginning? Let's check. Let's check. Evans, you want to develop before I go to the end, just to see? Evans?
I mean, like, it's like what we've been talking about. Like, she's very clingy in the beginning, and then she kind of learned how to, like, let go. And, like, that shows her level of maturity, not only in a relationship, but as a person, how she developed.
Okay, excellent. Let me give textual basis for what you just said. Look at the first verse, okay? Remember how she was in the first verse. Let's go there right now. I'm on page, well, let's just do first verse. Okay, right after we talk about Solomon, first verse. What is she saying in the first verse? She's saying, oh, kiss me with the kisses of your, lips. Your love is better than wine. She's, totally after this guy. She's like, I want you, right? Now look at the last verse. What does it say? Tell me. Chapter 8, verse 14. What do we see there? What is she telling her beloved? Is she telling him, come to me? What is she saying? Okay, let me check everybody's there. Everybody's at chapter 8, verse 14? Put your hand in the screen. Okay, what do you read there? What's she telling him? Is she telling him, come to me? Or is she saying something else? Exactly, Gogas, right? She's saying, run away. Go. I set you free. Be like a gazelle. Be free. I don't need to possess you, right? I don't need to have a hold on you. I don't need you to be here like this. You can be free. You can be yourself. I can love you and you can still be free, right? So this is the main, right? This is what I forgot who you were. I'm tired today. Whoever was speaking before, right? This is exactly what the woman changes from possessive, right, to being able to let go, to relinquish control, to allow the man to come to her rather than, right, grabbing him. Now, what about the man? We know already how he changed. Remind me, how does the man change? How is the man in the end compared to the man in the beginning? You guys are slow. Drive me crazy. Just put it in chat if you know the answer so I can continue. How is the man different? Is he the same? Okay, let's see what Prashad said. He's deeply in love with her at the end compared to the beginning. Absolutely, right? We saw that, right? In the beginning, he's like in the lilies, he's not sure, he's not committed, he's fickle. Towards the end, we saw, right? Chapter, what was it? Forget which chapter, but the last, right, occurrence of the Lily passage, right? He's actually now entirely focused on her. So this is the second thing, right? The lovers have the humility to change. And this is the second element, right? So let me say it together, right? The secret is, number one, perseverance. Number two, the humility to change. And as some of you said, right, they grow together, says Medina, right? Santos, flexibility, absolutely, right? So you have this humility of the lovers, this flexibility, this willingness to allow their love to transform them. And this is the second key. You need both, right? They're willing to change for each other. They're willing to grow and mature. And so we're learning something really powerful here. We're learning that love is really about transformation. Right? Too often we think of love, oh, love is when I'll finally be happy. Right? A lot of us, we think like that. Oh, when I finally have a boyfriend or a girlfriend, oh, finally I can relax, I can be happy, right? What we're learning is that no, love is not about happiness. Love is about challenge, right? This is the main difference between the Hebrew view of love and the Greek view that we're about to study with Plato. The Hebrew view, the Hebrew worldview views love as challenging force which causes my transformation. Love is not about comfortableness. It's not about happiness. It's not about easy. It's not about finally, exhaling like the movie 20 years ago, which nobody saw, right? It's really about growth, right? And so the challenges are an essential part of love, right? And the fact that if we realize this, that love is not about our happiness, it's about our growth, we will navigate it completely different. Let me give you an example. If you think love is about your happiness and things start to go bad, right? What are you gonna do? What's gonna be your reaction? I'm not happy. Therefore, what? I must go, says Leon, right? Love is happiness. I'm not happy. Therefore, this isn't love. Let me find love somewhere else, right? Now, if you realize that love is not primordially about happiness, but about transformation, when a challenge comes your way, you're like, ooh, right? Finally, this problem, this issue is allowing me to transform. So it's not even about staying for the other at that point. It's about staying for you. I'm going to go through this and I'm going to see how this problem can transform me. If we were to see the challenges of love as opportunities rather than as problems, right, we would navigate completely different, right? Instead of seeing, oh, it's a problem, let me get the hell out of there. Instead of seeing it like that and seeing like, oh, it's a challenge, there's a possibility of growth. Let me take on this challenge and see how I can grow out of it. What's so interesting is that it is the man's infidelity which in the end forces the woman to mature into the woman she becomes. And it's crazy how someone's sin and darkness can become a force for good in your own being if you allow it. And this is the powerful message of the Song of Songs. Very countercultural today, right? We are all about comfort and happiness, right? What we're learning here is the other's darkness can become a factor for my own light to be diffused. And this is such a powerful message, which we will never hear about in our civilization, right? Even though they're wrong and they're doing this wrong, if I take up the challenge and if I make the changes I need to make, I come out of this situation higher than before. I don't come out a victim, I come out a victor. I come out high, not low. Are you following what I'm saying? Is this making sense? Put your hand in the screen if you see. Is anyone struggling with what I'm saying? Some of you should be struggling with what I'm saying. I'm not seeing enough struggle here. I'm not seeing, or if you're struggling, you're not saying it, which you should, because this is the moment to do it. This is a difficult thing I just said, right? It's almost shocking, right? To say in a way that the other's darkness, in a way, can become an opportunity for self-transformation, and that in the process you can come out of it with more light, with a deeper capacity for love than when you first started out, right? The woman, in a way, is powerfully transmuted into this amazing woman who is able to stand her ground while letting go. She's strong and beautiful at the same time. But all this happened, why? Because this guy was insanely fickle and didn't know what he wanted. And he, in a way, right, he, like iron sharpens iron, right? We have this in the Proverbs, right? The other can really bring you to a point where you either leave or you transform, right? And the path of transformation is only possible if you persevere, right? So it's really, the text is not telling us you have to stay, right? The text is saying, if you stay, this is what could happen. You could change. You could become transformed. Here's how to navigate. Here's how you can do this, right? The text is only saying, here's a path, right? Which you can decide to choose or not, right? So that's really what we are learning here, right? If we are a complete mess, there is a way out. You don't have to be gifted. You don't have to apply the art of seduction. You don't have to be good at anything. If you just know how to persevere and you're willing to change, you will succeed no matter who you are involved with. No matter how insane that person is, you have the power to make the relationship, to transform the relationship, just by allowing the transformation to occur on your own level. Okay, any questions on anything I said? Good. All right, so I will let you simmer these thoughts. So next time, which is when? We are Wednesday, so Monday, I guess we have class on Monday, right? I can't tell anymore. There's so many. Do we have class next Monday? No?
I think we meet again next Wednesday.
Okay, so Wednesday. All right, so now you have some time to, you can actually, if you want, start the first test question, right? You already have the test question here. Since you have some time, I would do that if I were you. How does one attract commitment according to the Song of Songs? You have many, many ways to answer this now, right? So make sure as you do your answers, it's not due yet, right? But you can do it. It will be due in a couple weeks, but you can already start doing it now since it's fresh, right? If I were you, I would do it now, right? So how do you attract commitment? Remember, you want to do a whole page single spaced, and you want to make sure that you have quotes, right? And you want to make sure you have as much as possible of the lecture coming into your answer. Prashad, it's in your syllabus, the questions of the tests. How does one attract commitment? Okay, by the way, I want to just read what Hassan wrote. I just see it here. You have to wait for the love to ripen. You wouldn't cut down a whole apple tree simply because it only has blossoms and no fruit. This is such a beautiful way to put it, right, Hassan? Often with our beloveds, we cut down the tree before the tree has the time to mature. And sometimes the tree takes a long time, right? But we often do that. We cut down the tree because we only see a couple leaves or we only see a couple blossoms. And were we to wait, there's no telling, right, what might happen to that tree, right? So beautifully put, Hassan. Nice way to conclude. Okay, so next time we don't have a reading assignment. So because you have all this time, You just you don't have to read yet, Brahman. It's only I will introduce Plato, and then the reading assignment will be, I guess, the week after. It's going so slow in September. So that's why I'm suggesting, you know, try to do your test question already, since you have some time. Okay. All right. I'm gonna stop the recording.